Today we're going to talk about how you and your students can create animations using Google Slides. I'm actually showing a student sample right now. These students were tasked with making an animation in Google Slides that explains how the Earth was created. So this student has a lot of movement in the background and foreground and has text moving and all sorts of different things. They have over 800 slides in here, and this animation is just playing as a published to the web Google slideshow. So we're going to look at how you can create animations in Google Slides. So we're going to go ahead and stop this one. Scary. And we're going to jump into a blank slideshow here. So you just need Google Slides to make this happen, which is amazing. And of course, a concept of what process you want to show. We're going to do something a little silly involving squirrels today. This is a sample that I love to show when I'm using students because they get to be a little creative and fun and practice the concept of how to create animation in slides before moving on to actually applying it to a concept or a story that they're telling. The first thing I like to tell students is that this is a little bit like a flip book. It's like you're on the corner of the edge of a notebook and you've made a little movement on each of them and you're flipping through and you're seeing that movement happen. It's a lot like that. Frame by frame, the smaller the movements, the better quality you're going to have. Of course, though, we only have a limited amount of time usually to make these. So we're going to talk about some keyboard shortcuts that are going to save us some time. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to set the background here of my image. So I'm going to go to my background button, which is right here. I could do a color. I'm going to choose an image because it is a squirrel. I'm just going to do a search for a forest background. And I'm going to pull that in right here. And that's going to set my background. I'm going to click done on here. Bam, we have our forest scene. Now I want to add in a squirrel. So I'm going to go to insert image. And I'm just going to, again, use this built-in search tool. This is the time where I usually talk about PNG files because we want to find a squirrel that doesn't have a background on it. Not that this is perfect, but I'm going to search for a squirrel, we can spell, and I'm going to search for squirrel PNG. This isn't always perfect as it tells students, so sometimes I'll insert a couple of them and then see which one I like best. So I'm going to just grab a few guys here. I was informed when I did this with students that I was choosing chipmunks sometimes and that aren't squirrels. So you pick what you're comfortable with on here. And we're going to see those images pull up. They're probably going to be the wrong size, but we're going to go ahead and delete the ones that we don't want and we're going to stick with the ones that work. Okay, now that we have our squirrels on here, I'm going to click off and I'm just going to grab the one I want. This one is perfect and I'm going to resize him. The handle up here allows us to rotate the squirrel how we want to see him move. I'm going to have this squirrel just kind of prance around on the scene. So I'm going to position him where I want. If he hangs off the edge, it doesn't matter. He will not show off the edge. It will only show what's in the frame of the slide. So I'm going to start him out here. Now I'm going to start duplicating my slide and moving him each time I duplicate. So I'm going to select my slide number 1 over here, my shortcut. I have all of our shortcuts down here that we're going to look at. Our first shortcut is Control D. That is a duplicate. So I'm going to go over here. Control D is going to duplicate my slide for me. I'm going to click on my squirrel. I'm using my arrows. I don't want to lift my hands much because that takes more time. Okay, I've moved him just a nudge, just a little bit. I'm going to press Control D again. I always select the slide that I want to duplicate from. Now I'm going to move him up and over a little bit, and I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep pressing Control D, and I'm going to move him a little bit more and a little bit more. Let's fast forward this so we can get to the end. Okay, so now if I want to see what my movement's going to look like, I can go back to my first slide, and I'm just using my down arrow to kind of trace through the movements. I can also at any point too go back to my first slide and click our present button up here. And then I'm just using my right arrow key just to arrow through to see what he looks like around on the screen. Now I of course can bring in other objects. I can add in text. So what you saw in that student sample in the beginning is she added one letter at a time to each slide. And then that created that that looking like the text was appearing one row at a time. The text itself had movement. So text can fall, it can appear. One thing that I tell students too is just be aware that depending on how fast you end up having each slide move, you may need to go back in and extend it so that the text is on the screen long enough. You'll probably notice as I was going through, I was using my arrow keys to move the squirrel up and down. The handle helped me rotate it. We also have, when we have it selected under format options, We also can go to size and position, and we can flip our guy here. So if we want him to flip back and forth, again, image selected, format options, size and position, lets me flip him if I need to flip him any sort of way. I can do that there. So my arrow keys, shift and arrow key will nudge him so he just moves a little bit. Also, Control-Alt-K and Control-Alt-J will increase and decrease the size of this guy. So if you want him to look like he's coming towards the screen and get bigger, we can do that, or smaller, we can do that as well. One other thing I want to show you is that if you have any movements that you want to repeat, as in on a loop, what you can do is you can go over to your slides and you can select the ones that you want to loop over and over again. By holding down Control will let you select just the ones you want to duplicate, or if it's all of them, Control A. Once you press Control A, you then press Control D to duplicate all those slides again. So when we do that and we go down, we've created a loop. So once it gets to the end of the loop, it's just going to start back again and go back to the beginning. So if you have a waving motion or something that you want to repeat, you can duplicate or loop those slides by selecting them and then duplicating them again. So those are some just tips and tricks with simply creating the animations. So now that we have it created, and of course, again, you're going to add in text, you're going to add in different backgrounds, you can have all sorts of fun and add all different kinds of elements, thinking about how things fall, do they bounce, do they have that kind of movement, you can do all of that. Once it's finished, it's time to publish it to the web so that it autoplays. So to do this, and I have the directions here for you, so if you want to pause in on here, sorry, let me get that a little bit better. So if you want to pause in on it and follow along, you can as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Publish to the Web. When we get here, we want to set it so it auto advances every second. In fact, we're going to play with this a little bit more. Every second is usually too slow, so we'll get even smaller than that. I always like it to start as soon as it loads. I don't like it to restart. Well, it just depends on the animation. If you're telling a story, you probably don't want your story to start again, so you may not want it to restart, kind of up to you. You can change these settings at any time by going back to File and Publish to the Web. So I'm going to click my Publish button. I'm going to say OK to publish. I'm going to copy this link. I always tell students that I suggest that they copy the link just so that they can play with the web address, okay? And playing with the web address is going to help us decide how quickly each slide progresses. I suggest that they paste it here. So right now it's saying flip every second. So the second is the 1,000. So if we want to go half of a second, we're going to change it to 500. But let's see what it looks like. I go in a new tab and I paste that link. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And now it's going to play. So he's kind of a slow moving because every second he's moving a little bit, right? So I want to play with that address. So I can go back to my link here. I'm going to change it. Let's try 500. Then I'm going to select that again. If that's too slow, I'm going to put it at 200. So this is a half a second he's moving, still kind of slow. So I can go to the end of my address here if I want. It's moving kind of quickly. Let's go back here. And then I'm going to keep readjusting it till I get what I want with the link. And then this will be the link that students can turn into you or that they can bookmark to play. But this is where my animation will exist. And there he goes. So happy squirrel rotating around. So that's a simple way that you and your students can show a concept or tell a story using animation in Google Slides.